Purana, which means it's a very sacred spiritual text, and we can learn a great deal from it if the conditions are right. So I'll start chapter 14, Ideal Family Life. This chapter describes the occupational duties of the householder according to the time, the country, and the performer. When Yudhisthira Maharaj became very much inquisitive about the occupational duties for the householder, Narada Muni advised him that a Grihasta's first duty is to be fully dependent on Vasudeva, Krishna, and try to satisfy him in all respects by executing one's prescribed devotional service. This devotional service will depend on the instructions of authorities and the association of devotees who are actually engaged in devotional service. The beginning of devotional service is Shravanam, or hearing. One must hear from the mouths of realized souls. In this way, the Grihasta's attraction to his wife and children will gradually be reduced. As for the maintenance of his family, a Grihasta, while earning what he requires for his living, must be very conscientious and must not undergo extraordinary endeavor simply to accumulate money and unnecessarily increase in material comforts. Although a Grihasta should be externally very active in earning his livelihood, he should internally be situated as a fully self-realized person, without attachment for material gains. His dealings with family members or friends should be performed simply to fulfill their purpose. One should not be extravagantly engaged in this way. Instructions from family members and society should be accepted superficially, but in essence the Grihasta should be engaged in occupational duties advised by the spiritual master and Shastra. Specifically, a Grihasta should engage in agriculture activities to earn money. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 1844, Krishna Goraksha Vijanayam, agriculture, cow protection and trade are special duties of Grihastas. If by chance or by the grace of the Lord more money comes, it should be properly engaged for the Krishna consciousness movement. One should not be eager to earn more money simply for sensual pleasure. A Grihasta should always remember that one who is endeavoring to accumulate more money than necessary is to be considered a thief and is punishable by the laws of nature. A Grihasta should be very much affectionate toward lower animals, birds and bees, treating them exactly like his own children. A Grihasta should not indulge in killing animals or birds for sense gratification. He should provide the necessities of life even to dogs and the lowest creatures, and should not exploit others for sense gratification. Factually, according to the instructions of Srimad Bhagavatam, every Grihasta is a great communist who provides the means of living for everyone. Whatever a Grihasta may possess, he should equally distribute to all living entities without discrimination. The best process is to distribute prasad. So in case you're wondering what a Grihasta is, it's basically somebody who's married, married and probably got children, or the Krishna consciousness in the marriage. That's why we've actually got this system called Varnashram Dharma, and it's how we're supposed to organize society according to, when I say Shastra, it means scripture. So Varnashram Dharma is society organized according to scripture, and there's 4 occupational duties: Shudra, Vaishya, what's the other one? Kshatriya and Brahmana. So these are areas that people can work in, and there's also 4 ashrams, 4 spiritual orders. So these are called Brahmachari, Grihasta, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. So Grihasta is basically the ashram for people who are married. So a Grihasta should not be very much attached to his wife. He should engage even his own wife in serving a guest with all attention. Whatever money a Grihasta accumulates by the grace of God, he should spend in 5 activities, namely worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, receiving Vaishnavas and saintly persons, distributing prasad to the general public and to all living entities, offering prasad to his forefathers, and also offering prasad to his own self. Grihastas should also be ready to worship everyone as mentioned above. The Grihasta should not eat anything not offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As it is said in the Bhagavad Gita 3.13, Yagna Shishta Santo Mushante Sava Kilbashe. The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food that is offered first for sacrifice. The Grihastas should also visit the holy places of pilgrimage mentioned in the Puranas. In this way, he should fully engage in worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead for the benefit of his family, his society, his country, and humanity in large. So, in case you don't know what prasad is, it's basically it's our food. It's called prasadam because it's spiritually sanctified before we eat it. We go through this process called offering this prasadam. It transforms it from ordinary food into food that's spiritually sanctified. So you get some prasadam for breakfast and for lunch and for tea. So anyway, so text 1. Shri Yudhisthira Uvacha. Shri Yudhisthira Uvacha. Grihasta Itam Padavim. Grihasta Itam Padavim. Grihasta Itam Padavim. Vidina Yena Chanshasa. Vidina Yena Chanshasa. Vidina Yena Chanshasa. Yayad Devarishi Bruhi. Yayad Devarishi Bruhi. Yayad Devarishi Bruhi. Madrasho Griha Mudadihi. Madrasho Griha Mudidihi. Madraso Griha Mudidihi. Shri Yudhisthira Uvacha. Grihasta Etam Padavim. Vidina Yena Chanshasa. Yayad Deva Rishi Bruhi. Madrasho Griha Mudadihi. Shri Yudhisthira Uvacha. Grihasta Etam Padavim. Vidina Yena Chanshasa. Yayad Deva Rishi Bruhi. Madrasho Griha Mudidi. Yudhisthira Uvacha. Griha Mudi. Shri Yudhisthira Uvacha. Grihasta Itam Padavim. Sa Yayad Deva Rishi Bruhi. Raso Griha Mudi. So we'll go through what's called the word for word now. So the word for word is how these verses are called slokas. So the word for word is how we translate the sloka into English. So I'll go through the word for word. Shri Yudhisthira Uvacha. Yudhisthira Maharaj said, Grihastaha, a person living with his family. Etam, this, the process mentioned in the previous chapter. Padavim, position of liberation. Vidina, according to the instructions of Vedic scripture. Yena, by which. Cha, also. Ajansasa, easily. Yayat, may get. Deva Rishi, O great sage among the demigods. Bruhi, kindly explain. Madrasha, such as me. Griha Mudidi, completely ignorant of the goal of life. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Maharaj Yudhisthira inquired from Narada Muni, O my lord, O great sage, kindly explain how we who are staying at home without knowledge of the goal of life may also easily attain liberation according to the instructions of the Vedas. So I'll read it again and I'll go through it just section by section. So Maharaj Yudhisthira inquired from Narada Muni, O my lord, O great sage, kindly explain how we who are staying at home without knowledge of the goal of life may also easily attain liberation according to the instructions of the Vedas. So I'll read the purport now. So in previous chapters, the great sage Narada has explained how a brahmachari, a vanaprastha, and a sannyas should act. He first explained the dealings of brahmachari, vanaprastha, and sannyasi because these three ashrams, or statuses of life, are extremely important for fulfillment of the goal of life. One should note that in the brahmachari ashram, vanaprastha ashram, and sannyasa ashram, there is no scope for sex life, whereas sex is allowed in grihastha life under regulations. Narada Muni, therefore, first described brahmacharya, vanaprastha, and sannyasa because he wanted to stress that sex is not at all necessary, although one who absolutely requires it is allowed to enter grihastha life or household life, which is also regulated by the Shastras and Guru. Yudhisthira Maharaj could understand all this. Therefore, as a grihastha, he presented himself as Grimudhadihi, one who is completely ignorant of the goal of life. A person who remains a householder in family life is certainly ignorant of life's goal. He is not very much advanced in intelligence. As soon as possible, one should give up his so-called comfortable life at home and prepare to undergo austerity or tapasya. Tapo divam putraka. According to instructions given by Rasadev to his sons, we should not create a so-called comfortable situation, but must prepare to undergo austerity. This is how a human being should actually live to fulfill life's ultimate goal. Omagana timirandasya jana jana salakaya chakshurum militanyena tasmai shri gurave namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadara Shiva Sati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Happy Hari Hare Ram Ram Happy Hari. So what I'll do now is I'll try and give my interpretation of things that are interesting in the verse and the purport. I've actually made some notes, so I'll try and refer to these. So in the actual verse itself, where it says, may also easily attain liberation according to the instructions of the Vedas. So what's called the Vedas are very important to us, like a vast system of knowledge. Well, we're not sure exactly when they came into existence, but they're very, very ancient, and they're basically giving instructions on absolutely everything under the sun, really. But the Vedas are important because the Vedas are like the backbone of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We refer to things in the Vedic version. The Srimad Bhagavatam's in the Vedic version, so is Bhagavad Gita. It's giving the Vedic version. And when Srila Prabhupada writes a book, he's writing it in the Vedic version. So that's what Vedas mean. It's a vast system of knowledge that's also been written down. So I'll start on my notes now anyway. So thanks everybody for attending, giving up some of your valuable time to listen to my speaking on the Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm sorry if what I speak you've heard before somewhere, but I'm not exactly expert in this yet, but I'll try and do my best. So So when I give class, I usually include something by this by somebody by the name of Chanyaka Pandit in the class. Chanyaka Pandit is considered to be the authority in good counselling, both political and moral instructions. That's Srila Prabhupada. But Prabhupada, he quotes Chanyaka Pandit quite a lot in his writing. He considers him a very worthwhile. Well, like I say, he considers him to be the authority in good counsel in both political and moral instructions. So the particular statement of Chanyaka Pandit that I'd like to focus on is saying that the combination of male and female is worthwhile if both are on an equal level. So what I'm taking this as meaning is that people can enter the Grihastha ashram if they're both on an equal level of learning, and they're both on an equal level in life, if they're both Krishna consciousness, and also the combination of male and female is not worthwhile if both are on an equal level. So if you're thinking of entering the Grihastha ashram and you're not perfectly matched to your partner, it could become a disaster. You know, it could become something that it's not supposed to be. Because in Varnashram, it's supposed to be a system to elevate oneself to the supreme goal of life, which is to go back to Godhead. So when people are moving through the four ashrams and taking place in the four varnas, they're basically they're working according to the will of God. This is good because this is how we take most of our instructions in an ashram from authorities like the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita. There's also lots of other writings, Srimad Prabhupada. But it's essential that we move under the directions of Varnashram Dharma. Otherwise, we'll miss out on the point of life, which is to go back to Godhead at the end of it. So, like I said, I said a little bit earlier, Krishna must be in the center. Otherwise, it's but otherwise. So when I say Krishna must be in the center, when people have dealings in the Grihastha ashram, they should remember, when I say keep Krishna in the center, it means to take Krishna consciousness as the main foundation of their married life. To keep Krishna in the center would mean say following the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, for example. So Krishna must be in the center, otherwise it's Bhoga Tyaga, big wedding then divorce. So Bhoga Tyaga means alternative enjoyment then renunciation. So Bhoga Tyaga is significant because we're basically saying that people who aren't aware of Bhoga Tyaga, they're going to make certain mistakes. They're going to, like I say, they're going to have they're going to go all out for enjoyment. Then because Bhoga Tyaga is like a pendulum swinging, so it's enjoyment then renunciation, enjoyment then renunciation. It's a big wedding then divorce. So I noticed that Prabhupada talks about sex life in the purport a little bit. So I think maybe Prabhupada's talking about it in slightly different terms of reference to us Westerners. Where it says whereas sex is allowed in Grihastha life under regulations, so sex is only allowed strictly to have children. It's not there for sense gratification at all. It's to have Krishna conscious children. Yeah, that's so sex life will ultimately lead to children, and children, wife, and home and house have to be maintained by husband. So it's quite an undertaking entering the Grihastha ashram, because you may be what's called a brahmachari, which is like the first ashram. So in a brahmachari, you're a single monk. So however, brahmacharis do go into the grihastha ashram. They get attracted to a female, and they think, well, it's love, really, isn't it? That's a sort of a main mover in these affairs. People fall in love together and they decide to, we should get married and have a wife, but have wife and children. But it's obviously quite a big undertaking to maintain a wife and a house and a child. So in this chapter, only the first 16 slokas are about how to carry on it in the grihastha ashram. The rest are about how to offer yagnas, sacrifice to Krishna. Hence the chapter is called Ideal Family Life. In text 10 it says, one should not engage oneself in ugra karma. So ugra karma means vicious activities. So because this is quite relevant, I'll read from the verse in the relevant section. So in text 10, even in householder life, one should be satisfied to maintain body and soul together with whatever is available with minimum endeavor, according to place and time, by the grace of the Lord. One should not engage himself in ugra karma. So Prabhupada writes about exactly what is ugra karma in the purport. So I'll just try and find the relevant section. These are the different occupational duties by which men should earn their livelihood, and in this way human society should be simple. At the present moment, however, everyone is engaged in technological advancement, which is described in Bhagavad Gita as ugra karma, extremely severe endeavor. This ugra karma is the cause of agitation within the human mind. Men are engaging in many sinful activities and becoming degraded by opening slaughterhouses, breweries and cigarette factories, as well as nightclubs and other establishments for sense enjoyment. In this way, they are spoiling their lives. In all of these activities, of course, householders are involved, and therefore it is advised here with the use of the word api that even though one is a householder, one should not engage himself in severe hardships. One means of livelihood should be extremely simple. So I've also noticed that text 9 is also quite cute. It says the translation of text 9 is that one should treat animals such as deer, camels, asses, monkeys, mice, snakes, birds, and flies exactly like one's own son. How little difference there actually is between children and these innocent animals. So if you keep coming to class every morning, you'll find in about a week's time that somebody will give class on that verse, and you can have a listen to it and see what they think and see what they make of the verse. So one has to be careful to avoid the influence of the modes of nature, of passion and ignorance. So these modes of passion and ignorance, we consider that there are three modes of material nature called goodness, passion, and ignorance, and so these three modes are really significant in that they sort of rule everything we do. Yeah, in the day we're under the influence of the modes of goodness and passion and ignorance. From 12 o'clock at night to 8 o'clock in the morning, we're under the mode of goodness. From 8 o'clock till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we're under the mode of passion. And from 4 o'clock in the afternoon till 12 midnight, we're under the mode of ignorance. So this is significant because basically only in the mode of goodness will make spiritual advancement. In the mode of passion, one's concerned with doing this and doing that, and trying to take on all these duties just to sort of earn a living or just to maintain oneself. And in the mode of ignorance, the mode of ignorance is mainly ruled by sleep madness and laziness, really. So in ignorance, it's A person who's too much under the influence of the mode of ignorance will do stuff like sleep until 12 o'clock in the day, and he'll also he'll be very indolent, which means he won't be very interested in doing like a full day's work, perhaps. So the mode of ignorance it's also it prevents one from advancing in spiritual life. It prevents one from advancing in Krishna consciousness. So, like I say, only in the mode of goodness is one able to advance. So, do you remember what I was saying about prasadam a little bit earlier? So, like I say, that absolutely everything in the material conception is ruled by the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So, we maintain that prasad is always under the mode of goodness, because it's described in the Bhagavad Gita about the three modes of material nature. If you haven't read it, you haven't read the Bhagavad Gita. It's highly recommended. But so we're always trying to prasad, and it's always in the mode of goodness, and it's 100% good food. So I probably haven't explained that very well, but I'll just move on a little bit. One also has to be careful to avoid lust. Lust is not praised in the Bhagavad Gita. The Gita talks of 3 gates to hell. In chapter 16, the divine and demoniac natures, lust is considered to be one of the 3 gates to hell: lust, anger, and greed. So this is significant because these 3 qualities, lust, anger, and greed, over no provocation. There's people go around, they're angry all day long, and they go to bed and they're angry, and they get up and they're angry. It's quite funny, really. You get there's a lot of anger that's floating around in society today. There's also a lot of greed. So greed is also considered one of the gateway of hell. A person who's too greedy is going to fall down in life, is going to be ruled by greed and lust. Lust is it's really frowned upon in Krishna consciousness. So in text 10, chapter 16, taking shelter of insatiable lust and absorbed in the conceit of pride and false prestige, the demoniac, thus illusioned, are always sworn to unclean work, attracted by the impermanent. So chapter 16 of the Bhagavad Gita is called the divine and demoniac natures. And it's to be read definitely is chapter 16, because we're thinking that nowadays a lot of society is ruled by the demoniac tendency. People are only interested in making money or taking advantage of people and what have you. Whereas there's like 2 classes of people: the divine and the demoniac. So in chapter 16, they talk of the qualities of the divine, and they talk about the qualities of the demoniac. So the demoniac tendencies are significant, because a person who's too much influenced by the demoniac will have a very low birth in his next incarnation, because that's something we believe in Krishna consciousness, that everybody's going to have a next life. They've had previous lives and they're going to have a next life. And the demoniac are going to, you can basically lose your human form of life. You can go down to the animal kingdom if you're demoniac. So there's no place for lust in the Grihastha ashram. Lust would destroy it. Without becoming a devotee of the Lord, one cannot perfect one's human life. That's Prabhupada speaking. So perfection means going back to Godhead, back to the spiritual world. Also, in a few places in the chapter, Prabhupada is going to talk about dogs, how they should be treated. So this is something that I normally bring up every time that I give class. I normally quote this little statement by Prabhupada on how on the similarity between dogs and the living entity. So I'll just do this. And the living entity's condition is likened to a dog's. By chance, a dog may have a very rich owner, and by chance, he may become a street dog. As the dog of a rich man, he will live very opulently. Sometimes in Western countries, we hear of a master leaving millions of dollars to a dog in his will. Of course, there are many dogs loitering in the street without food. Therefore, to liken the conditioned existence of the living entity to a dog is very appropriate. So, according to the Vedic version, it's only the human form of life that it affords one the opportunity of going back to Godhead, because the dogs and other animals, they can't realize God in this lifetime, whereas in the human form of life we can realize God. And so Prabhupada looks down on dogs a little bit. You know, he sort of he's poking fun at the Western world by saying, "Why do you take your dog so seriously when you should be thinking about your next life? And if you're not God conscious now, you should definitely try and be God conscious before it's too late." So when he says by chance he may become a street dog, so Prabhupada was from India. In India people don't keep dogs as pets. You know, the dog is really frowned upon. It's just kicked out into the street and left to fend for itself. So that's why he's saying street dogs. There are many dogs loitering in the street without food. Yeah, in India there are, but so that's from Srimad Bhagavatam 4:24-30. Talks between Narada and King Prachinabhari, the purport. So what I do now is I give some of my Sankirtan realizations, because one part of Krishna consciousness is called Sankirtan. It's where we go out on the street and try and take our knowledge to the general public and try and cheer up the life a little bit, and maybe sell them a book about Krishna consciousness. The main devotee called Adokshita Krishna, he's the head of Sankirtan in the temple, and he's a very big distributor. So I think today and tomorrow, some of the people here in this class will be going out on book distribution to Edinburgh. And it's really a lot of fun, even though it can be quite off-putting when you first try it. But you know, there's nothing like the sensation of selling a Bhagavad Gita to somebody on the street and getting a little bit of money back for it. So my Sankirtan realization is that there's always somebody worse off than you. Because when you're doing Sankirtan, you often feel like, oh God, this is the loneliest place in the world. I can't speak to anybody, and everybody's ignoring me, and I'm so unfortunate. So my reply to that of feeling unfortunate is that there's always somebody worse off than you. It's something that I observe to be true, because when I do Sankirtan, I go from door to door. I go through like a little village or a little town and start going through the doors, you know, start working my way through the doors. And yeah, I've noticed that if you think you're unfortunate, you're not, because there's always somebody worse off than you. There's things like people who are handicapped, people who've got people who are handicapped, people, you know, they're getting around in wheelchairs and what have you. There's people who are mentally handicapped, and there's like old people as well. So in Krishna consciousness, there's a statement concerning the four problems of life. So the four great problems of life are birth, death, old age, and disease. Because these are called the four great problems because nobody's ever managed to think of a solution to them. Nobody's ever managed to find a solution to birth, death, old age, and disease. So when I've been doing the doors, sometimes I've noticed old people, you know, somebody answers the door and living in a really neat bungalow, and you know, it's obvious that the person who's answered the door is living as a single person because the husband's died or something like that. You know, so it's difficult to see what they're getting out of life. You know, they're in this bungalow that's immaculately clean, and they're very presentable and they're answering the door, but you sort of think, well, what's keeping this person going really? Her husband's died, and she must be here on her own. Her children have moved away to other places. What's keeping her going? You feel really sorry for them. So I went to India recently for 2 weeks, and I've got a little postscript to my Sankirtan realization that there's always somebody worse off than you. So when I went to India, I observed the situation there. And yeah, in India, there's lots of people who are worse off than you. Lots and lots of people. I think about at least half the population is worse off than us in the UK. Yeah, and you get Indian devotees because India's like India's the traditional home of Krishna consciousness. Although Prabhupada went to America to try and start Krishna consciousness over there, and he succeeded. So America's probably the home of the modern day Krishna consciousness movement. But India is the birthplace of Krishna consciousness. It's a great tradition in India. I went to this place called Mayapur, and Mayapur is this really big temple complex, and you get just thousands of Indian devotees there, just thronging all the streets and byways of Mayapur. They're really dressed up in all the saris and all the dhotis and kurtas. Yeah, and they look really dazzling. But you sort of wonder when you're looking at them. Wow, I had all these advantages of growing up in the Western world. I had healthcare and went to school from the age of 5 and everything like that. And and when you look at these Indian devotees, you think, wow, did they get as comfortable as I did? But anyway, it's like I say, I always tend to sort of give a statement by Chanyaka Pandit when I'm giving class. So another statement of Chanyaka Pandit is, don't take an enemy leniently. Always think of him as very dangerous. Yeah, it's like telling you don't underestimate the opposition, because in Krishna consciousness we've got this thing called Maya. So Maya is that which is not. It's basically illusion. But we have a strange relationship with Maya, because we say that Maya's present in everyday dealings with people and what have you. It's why everything gets so confused, and it's so Chanyaka's Pandit saying, don't take Maya leniently. Always think of Maya as being very dangerous. Yeah, and Maya is very dangerous because when you set out to do a job and you get all these little difficulties that sort of prevent you from doing a job, that's Maya. When you try and understand the situation and you understand the wrong meaning of the situation, that's also Maya. And so Maya is just so prevalent in everyday life. It's just not worth mentioning. So something else that Chanyaka Pandit says, time is so valuable that if you pay millions of gold coins, you cannot get back even a moment. If you spoil such valuable time without any profit, just imagine how much you are losing. So there's like two bits to that statement, isn't there? So first he's saying that time's so valuable. And it is. Time is so valuable. I mean, you can't go back to when you were 17 and, think, oh, crikey, wow, my life's not so good now because I made mistakes when I was 17. And if I only could go back and reverse some of the things that I did when I was 17, you're stuck with what you did when you were 17. You made your mistakes and you got to live with them. So he's saying that time is so valuable. If you pay millions of gold coins, you cannot get it back even a moment. Yes. And so the second part of the statement is, if you spoil such valuable time without any profit, just imagine how much you are losing. So that statement is sort of saying that you should really use your time in the best way possible. If you get up on a Saturday morning and you spend an hour making your breakfast and you put your feet up in front of your stereo or your streaming device, and you check your phone for an hour and go on Facebook for an hour and a half, that's valuable time without any profit. And the point of it is, just imagine how much you're losing. Just imagine all these gold coins that you're not losing, that you're losing because you haven't made the best use of your time. So something that Srila Prabhupada says that in his writings, he often speaks about those who have a poor fund of knowledge. It's like his catch-all phrase to describe people who aren't Krishna consciousness. So one of Prabhupada's statements is that one who has a poor fund of knowledge cannot understand the distinction between the external and the internal potencies. So I'll just explain that a little bit for you in case you're puzzled. So we're saying that Krishna, our God, has got two main energies. He's got his internal potency and his external potency. His internal energies and his external energies. So his internal energies comprise the spiritual energies, and his external energies comprise the material energies. So when I was speaking about Maya a while ago, so Maya is one of the external energies of Krishna. It's his non-spiritual energy. However, I remember when I was starting back in Krishna consciousness, I went from not liking myself very much at all to sort of being able to live with myself on a daily basis, which was quite a big triumph for me, because before I came to Krishna consciousness, I was engaged in all kinds of not very productive activities. But once I started going to a weekly meeting and chanting a little bit, I became a different person, really. And so the scientific explanation for is why did I go from not feeling so good about myself to feeling very good about myself is because the human beings are called the marginal energy of Krishna. We can be either situated on his external potency or his internal potency. In everyday life, until we encounter Krishna consciousness, we're situated on his external potency. If we get in touch with Krishna consciousness and we do a little bit of chanting, I mean, you're going to stay in the temple for a month and you're going to find out all about Krishna consciousness, and you're going to see how we do things in the temple. You'll be soon situated on the internal potency of Krishna. Yeah, I can guarantee that. So interestingly, Srila Prabhupada also talks about the last snare of Maya. That's something that he brings up in his writings fairly often, the last snare of Maya. The last snare of Maya is to consider yourself as being on an equal footing with God or Krishna. That's the last snare of Maya. And I was thinking, oh, crikey, the last snare of Maya. I wonder what the first snare of Maya is. So I came to the conclusion that the first snare of Maya must be to think that there's no God. Yeah, so, in Krishna consciousness, we say that, Maya is very, very cunning. She's out there to fool you, and she'll do it by any means necessary, either fair or foul. And like I say, she's got all these snares that people fall into. The last snare of Maya is to consider yourself on an equal footing with God, and the first snare of Maya is to consider that there's no God. So I'll just finish with this little bit. So Prabhupada also speaks about one big failing of the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul is someone who hasn't come in contact with the Krishna consciousness. The big failing of the conditioned soul is a desire to lord it over the laws of material nature. So what's meant by this statement? To desire it over the laws of, to desire to lord it over the laws of material nature. It's to consider that you won't die, basically, and lots of other things besides. The desire to lord it over the laws of material nature. It means to think that you're more than you are, really. It's to think that maybe you're on an equal footing with God, and you think you can do all these activities under immaterial nature, but unfortunately you can't, because Krishna's in the control of material nature, and he won't have you lording over material nature for so long. So something that I do when I give in class, I think of a field of material nature, and how disastrous is the attempts to lord it over the laws of material nature are for the conditioned soul. So I normally concentrate on something like meat eating. So I won't go into that this time, but so the area that I'd like to focus on of the desire to lord it over the laws of material nature is designer clothes. Pretty unlikely area, but I've been looking at all these designer clothes, all these Yves Saint Laurent, all Gucci, Burberry, Polo, Cartier, Rolex, Emperor Armani, and all those. So I think it's just an excuse to bump the prices up, really, because in the temple we're supposed to keep everything very simple. We're supposed to have we're not allowed to have unlimited stocks of clothes and stuff like that. And it's quite funny because a devotee a bit more concerned with here and now. He won't be interested in accumulating a wardrobe full of designer label clothes. So all these designer label clothes leads one to get puffed up with a false sense of pride, and that'll be disastrous for advancing in Krishna consciousness. I was going to quote a little verse here, but I don't think I've got quite time for it, but I'll try anyway. So it's Ishavashyamidan Sarvam Yakinsha Jagatcham Jagat Taina Chiakatena Punjita Magrita Kasha Svidvanam. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and known by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. So that particular sloka comes from a little book called Sri Ishapanisad. So the Ishapanisad, it's part of the Vedic version. It's actually considered to be a Veda in itself. It's the Ishapanisad. But in the Ishapanisad, it's a very nice book. You should maybe try and do a little bit of reading of it while you're here, because like I say, it's such a nice little book. And so the verse that I've just read, it's also called the Isha principle. It's saying basically that like I say in the translation, that everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and known by the Lord. So this is something you'll see when you're situated on the internal potency. You'll see that God is the prime mover in this world, and that it is also called the supreme controller. He's also the supreme proprietor, which is say owned by the Lord. So what we're basically saying in this Isha principle, Ishapanisad principle, is that that those people are accepting those things that aren't necessary for themselves. They're not walking in the way of God, really. They're not walking in the footsteps of Krishna. They're accumulating things that aren't really necessary for their upkeep in this world. But it's nearly past, so I'll have to finish here. And I've had quite a good class, really. I've managed to keep going till past. But if anybody's got any questions or comments, they can give me them now, and I'll try and answer them as best I can.
I'd just like to say thank you for such a wonderful class, Jayananda. That was very informative. I look forward to the next one.
Thank you.
Small question. We're talking about 3 modes of motivation. So one is maybe more in the ignorance. Is it important before starting spiritual practice to elevate yourself to the goodness, or you can start your practice to the ignorance?
So somebody who's just starting to practice spiritual life, they'll probably do all these activities that are associated with the mode of goodness. Like when we chant the Hare Krishna mantra, that's good for establishing yourself in the mode of goodness. So eating prasadam is good for establishing yourself in the mode of goodness, and getting up in the morning and having a shower and being clean throughout the day is also good for establishing yourself in the mode of goodness. But you also have to do things when you're in the mode of goodness, not because you like them, but because you've been prescribed to do them. The part of part of what's prescribed for your daily life. So like, say you're working a job and you don't really like doing some jobs, and so you don't do those jobs. That's not in the mode of goodness. So the mode of goodness is doing these jobs and realizing that you're Krishna consciousness. You realize that you're Krishna conscious, and that you do the jobs anyway. So whether you like them or not, yeah.
I just add something to that. I've read in various places that actually in order for one to start to enter the spiritual life, one has to have gained some previous credits and pious activity. You know, so in order for one to be able to hear the mantra, say the mantra, or even understand any of this knowledge, you have to have some kind of base level of pious activity. So that means doing some charity work, or indirectly you'll be serving a devotee or somehow you might not even know who've done it, but somehow with the thought of this stock of spiritual energy that allows me to be eligible to get into this knowledge. And without that, it's not possible. And we often see it on the street when you're approaching people. Some people are so conditioned in their lives and so caught up in this marriage religion and faith that anything that's contrary to what you're involved in, it just can't accept it, can't comprehend it, the consciousness can't perceive it. So
Grantaraj Srimad. Oh, sorry.
I'll just say thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, what you've just done there, that counts as being a pious activity. So just thanking a devotee, or maybe fetching a cup of tea from the counter of the prasadam hall to where they're sitting counts as a pious activity. So, yeah. But anyways, so thank you all for bearing with me. And Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Kodnatai Mayapur Sashe ki jai. Jai.